By the end of this video, you're going to have a good understanding of all the common types of minor scales. I'll never forget when great composer Maria Schneider told her story of her first piano lesson, where her teacher played "Bright the day, dark the night." This is a great example of the very common association we have with major chords being bright or happy, and minor chords being dark or sad. But what about the harmonic minor scale, for example? It sounds exotic to a lot of people because of the augmented second interval between the 6th and 7th scale degrees. And what about natural minor, melodic minor, Dorian? What's the difference, and when do we use them? Whereas major scale refers primarily to the one major scale that we all know and love, minor scale is a tiny bit more ambiguous. But what do they all have in common? A half step between the 2nd and 3rd scale degree, creating a minor third interval from the root to the 3rd note of the scale. A good starting point for understanding all the different types of minor is to start with natural minor. To find any natural minor scale, there are two approaches that work. Number one, play any of your major scales. Let's start with C major. Now play the same scale, but start on the 6th note. So in this case, A. This is the relative minor of C, because they start on different notes, but they share the exact same pitches. Now what if we want to go straight from C major to C natural minor? This is called the parallel minor. To understand how to find a parallel minor scale, let's compare the A natural minor scale that we just played with A major. How many sharps are in A major? 3. So we went from 3 sharps to 0 sharps. Similarly, to go from C major to C minor, we're going to go from no sharps or flats to 3 flats. You can think of this in terms of the circle of fifths. We're always going to move counterclockwise 3 keys to find the key signature for our relative minor. If you're not super familiar with all 12 keys yet, another easy way to get from major to natural minor is to lower the 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degrees of your major scale. So in this case, E flat, A flat, and B flat. So that's natural minor, also known as the Aeolian mode in a modal context. It's the 6th mode of its relative major, or if we're talking parallel, we lower the 3rd, 6th, and 7th to find that scale. Some well-known songs with melodies entirely in the Aeolian mode, aka natural minor scale, include Losing My Religion, God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, and In the Air Tonight. So then what the heck is melodic minor? Well, composers, when writing melodies in a minor key, realized that they really missed the way the La, Ti, Do, 6, 7, 1 sounded when ascending the scale. And remember, the 3rd scale degree being lowered is what makes a scale a minor scale. So they said, let's keep the rest of the scale the same so we can have our leading tone and we can have that 6th scale degree in the same place as normal, but keep the flat 3rd. So melodic minor, ascending, only has a lowered 3rd. The 6th and 7th are back where they started. And this is not a key signature. There's no key signature with just an E flat, for example. We always have to go in order. But when we're going down in a melody in a minor key, lowering scale degrees 6 and 7, like in the natural minor scale, gives it this flow downwards because of the half step and whole step intervals between the pitches. Ba da da da. Because of the way the intervals between the 7th, 6th, and 5th scales degrees relate to each other. So in an academic or classical music setting, natural minor actually refers to a scale that is different on the way up and down. Very cool, right? But to complicate matters, jazz natural minor is only the flatted 3rd on the way up and down. Moving on to Dorian. Remember when we found the relative minor of C by starting on the 6th note of the scale? Well, Dorian is the second mode of major, so we use the same approach, but we start on the second note of the scale. So D Dorian shares a key signature with C major. F Dorian shares a key signature with E flat major, because F is the second note of E flat. To find a parallel Dorian scale, we just take our major scale and we lower the third and the seventh, so we move 2 key signatures over instead of 3. In this case, we would lower the E flat and lower E to E flat and B to B flat, the third and seventh of the scale, and now we're playing C Dorian. The natural sixth that we're missing when we compare Dorian to natural minor is what gives Dorian its characteristic sound. Some well-known melodies in a Dorian mode include Scarborough Fair, Get Lucky, So What, Impressions, Billie Jean, and many others. It's very popular. That brings us to harmonic minor, which, as the name implies, is primarily used for building harmonies. But you do find some melodies using this scale, particularly in its descending form, dating back to Mozart and Beethoven. It's also very popular in heavy metal music. This scale is like natural minor, with the 7th scale degree put back to where it started, leading to an augmented second between that lowered 6th and scale degree 7. In the case of C harmonic minor, A flat to B. We call this interval an augmented second and not a minor third because A to B is always going to be some type of second. It could be a minor second, a major second, or an augmented second, or a diminished second, but we're not allowed to call an interval between A and B a third because those 2 letters are one apart in the musical alphabet, even though an augmented second is enharmonic to a minor third. So to go from C major to C harmonic minor, we lower only the 3rd and 6th scale degree. This means, once again, there is no matching key signature, and we would use the key signature from the natural minor, but we would use accidentals to raise the 7th scale degree back to where it goes. So in the case of C harmonic minor, we use our key signature with 3 flats, and we'll always put an accidental in front of any Bs where we want to have that leading tone. That way the key signature still represents the correct key center for the piece of music. But what does it mean to build harmonies out of a scale? And why is this leading tone, or the 7th scale degree, so important? Let's review how we build triads from the major scale first. And building a triad starting on each note, we get C, E, G, which is major, D, F, A, which is minor, E, G, B, which is minor, F, A, C, which is major, G, B, D, the major 5, A, C, E, minor 6th, B, D, F, which is our 7 chord and it's diminished. Now let's do the same thing with natural minor. A, C, E is minor, B, D, F is diminished, C, E, G, major, D, F, A is minor, E, G, B is minor, F, A, C is major, G, B, D is major. Those are the exact same chords that were in C major, obviously, because we just started in a different place and played the same triads. But whether we're playing in major or minor, we really like to have a 5 chord that can function as a dominant, which means a major triad with a minor 7th on top. So for example, in C major, if we take our triads and add one more note to make 7th chords, we get a G7 dominant chord. This dominant 5 chord is very powerful in Western music. It wants to go back to 1. This is found in pretty much every common chord progression. 1, 4, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1. 5 chords are just very, very common because they are sort of the bum. They're the most fundamental musical relationship. And in the minor scale-based triads that we just went through, the 5 chord is a minor triad, so we can't make that into a dominant chord unless we change that note. The 3rd of our 5 chord, no matter what scale we're talking about, is going to be the leading tone from that scale. So in this case, we take the natural minor, we raise our leading tone, and now we're playing a harmonic scale, which is great for building harmonies. It's in the word, right? So now our 5 chord in A harmonic minor, that chord is now going to be E, G sharp, B, D, which is again a dominant chord. That gives us that powerful movement back to the 1 that we wanted, that we always have in major. But you don't necessarily have to compose your melodies using harmonic minor over chords derived from harmonic minor. And in fact, composers love to mix the different types of minor scales over chords drawn from natural, harmonic, and melodic minor. Remember, music theory is never prescriptive. It's never where we get our ideas. Music theory is a system that we put in place to understand things that people were doing because they sounded good. It's important to have a good understanding of that. So you say, well, how do I get this sound? And you hear it. And when you have names for things, it's much easier to identify them and use them, kind of add them to your own palette, and also understand things better when you hear them. So to quickly review all the different minor scales, natural minor has a lowered 3rd, 6th, and 7th. Melodic minor has only the 3rd lowered on the way up and is the same as natural minor on the way down. Dorian is the 2nd mode of major, and it has a lowered 3rd and 7th. Harmonic minor has the 3rd and 6th lowered and is primarily used for chords, but can also create more aggressive or exotic sounding melodies in a minor tonality. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss my next music theory video. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time.